Welcome, this is Felipe Osario reporting from the City of Angels, or maybe the Fallen Angels. Yes, we have some crazy news. So if you guys have been following the show, you know that we have been hindered. We've made a lot of discoveries, we think, that has not been able to get out into the public. And oftentimes we have episodes that actually end up coming kind of true afterwards. We had the Ichthyosaurus fossil being larger than it can be being true. We had the alien abduction episodes that had the exact same descriptions as the documentaries. We talked about Christopher Mellon in our second episode as being a very, very important individual in the field of ufology, only to have him being one of the 4 To the Stars Academy members that actually came out to the New York Times with the tic-tac-toe UFO footage of the fighter pilot. So this channel has had a good track record, but unfortunately, YouTube, they're not a fan of us, and look, I'm not going to talk about the censorship anymore because I'm kind of tired of talking about it. But for those people who don't believe the channel has been censored, let me just show you the analytics real quick of a video that was getting really hot. We were very heated when we talked about this video. It was at 1,500 views, and then this is what happened. So as you can see, Google can claim that they are not censoring channels, but the statistics, well, let's put it this way. They call it an analytics curve for a reason, because it's supposed to look like a curve, not an L. Anyways, so the reason why I'm mentioning this is because only a few weeks ago, we started talking about the Navy UFO. And what I mean by the Navy UFO is that the Navy had actually created a patent for some kind of anti-gravity device that seemed to mimic the exotic properties that you often associate with UFOs, as was discussed by people like Bob Lazar and the Joe Rogan show, which we also reported. Bob Lazar actually commented on our video and thanked us for the work that we did. So did Jeremy Corbell. But how many views do you think we got after Joe Rogan stoked up 10 million views on that? So that's how we're running. If you guys found us, you guys found a really great community of people who are very dedicated to finding the truth. And so we were reporting that UFOs were real, and we were reporting that the US Navy has a patent for a UFO type object with anti-gravity properties that kind of mimics the electromagnetic properties of other anti-gravity devices like the TR-3, which there also seems to be a patent for. Now, as of 10 hours ago, we got here CNN. The US Navy has just confirmed these UFOs are the real deal. The US Navy has finally acknowledged footage purported to show UFOs hurtling through the air, and while officials said they don't know what the objects are, they're not indulging any hints either. The objects seen in the 3 clips they classified military footage are unidentified aerial phenomenon, Navy spokesman Joe Gradisher confirmed to CNN. The clips released between December 2017 and March 2018 by To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, TTSA, appears to show fast-moving oblong objects captured by advanced infrared sensors. So I'm not going to read further. I just want to show you guys that the Navy is now acknowledging that UFOs are real. We just talked about the Navy having a patent for UFO. And if you didn't follow the Bob Lazar episode, really important, Bob Lazar was getting paychecks by the Naval Intelligence. So people forget, it's like a very important detail that I think some people kind of just glossed over when doing research on Bob Lazar, whether he was a legitimate individual or not in his claims of back engineering UFOs at S4 adjacent to Area 51. And if that was not enough of a coinkadink, check this out. Oh, sorry. Seth Seth, okay, you may have known him. We talked about him. You know, it's part of our gig. We like to kind of jab at those skeptics every once in a while. But here we got Seth Seth, who, if you didn't know, he was the director of SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Well, he comes out with an article. Check this out. Only September 18th, and we're talking about today, 10 hours ago. We keep looking for space aliens. Are they looking for us? And look, I've seen a lot of Seth Shostak. I've seen a lot of like commentary by Seth Shostak that I just completely didn't agree. To me, I always pinned him as kind of a skeptic, no different than Michael Shermer, who, I mean, get this. Michael Shermer actually tried to make the argument in a YouTube video that because aliens, or let's say grays, okay, because grays look like humans, meaning they're like bipedal with eyes, nose, symmetrical, everything, that must mean that humans are just creating this. And so this is just like a way of humans kind of embodying their own psychological issues into some kind of anthropomorphical thing. And the funny thing is, like, he completely dismissed the idea of convergent evolution. The idea that two animals, like a shark and a dolphin, let's say, they can kind of resemble each other, even though a dolphin is technically genetically closer to us than it is to a shark. It's the environmental parameters that essentially forms the most evolutionary adaptable form, body, or whatever you want to call it. So what I'm trying to say is these skeptical arguments, I can't even say that they're based on science. But here we have Seth Shostak essentially saying that, well, in a way, kind of saying that let me read here. It seems a safe bet that if advanced aliens do exist in our galaxy, they would at least know our planet is here. If human astronomers can find thousands of worlds in 2,000 years, how many exoplanets, planets around other stars, will the denizens of other solar systems find in, say, millennia of slogging away? Well, yeah, that's what we've been trying to say. We kind of tried to make that point that a lot of these arguments are just an extrapolation. So to be honest with you, I've never seen this from Seth Shostak where he was actually trying to see if aliens should be here by now. And for a skeptic, I just need to read the very end because it kind of shocks me a little bit. It says here, roughly 15,000 star systems lie within 70 light years. No one knows if that's a large enough sample to contain some technologically nimble aliens, but it's hardly inconceivable that somebody has not only found Earth, but we learned we inhabited. One supposes they would find this of some interest. Is this not a form of support, extrapolating support for the idea that aliens might be real? And how convenient that the skeptic publishes this within an hour of CNN publishing that the Navy has essentially verified that the UFOs that was given to the Stars of Academy from individuals like Christopher Mellon, which we named as a second fucking episode. We literally made the whole episode about this individual who nobody was talking about at the time, who nobody had even been talking about other than maybe an article by Huffington Post. But here's the enclincher that I want to talk to you guys that really kind of shook me a little bit, okay? There's a lot going on in the world, right? We got oil fields being bombed in Saudi Arabia. We got potential escalation of World War III proportions. We got the Navy, the U.S. government, let's put it this way, a U.S. government section, military section, actually admitting that this is real, or at least that the footage was of an unidentified object that it wasn't theirs. It probably wasn't the Russians, probably wasn't the Chinese. So with all these confirmations, with the oil fields being bombed, with the insane civil unrest that is happening in this country, and so with all this stuff going on, right? I went to work today. By the way, I'm working full time now, so these episodes, I'll try to make them at nighttime. But they may not be as like graphic intensive. I'm just gonna try to wing these as much as I can. The guy had claimed to have worked for the CIA, that his wife worked for the NSA, that he was injected with some kind of substance that essentially made him sick and made him almost incapacitated in a way that he wasn't able to retain jobs anymore. And the guy went on to tell her that the aliens are here and that it's harvest season. And harvest season. That is, when I heard that, that was one of the most spine-chilling sensations I felt in a while. And I started thinking about some of the recent episodes, and then something hit me that kind of, I don't know. I couldn't believe it. If you caught my episode about the alien conspiracy, about proving the alien conspiracy, we had talked about the zodiac calendar, and we had talked about how strange it was that the date of the comet that had hit Greenland might have hit 12,800 years ago. And how funny of a coincidence that this is almost exactly half of the precessional cycle. Now, I don't know how this stuff works, but I'm starting to see patterns with the moon. I'm starting to see patterns with the sun. We're going to do another episode about the mathematical connections of our solar system, but I'm telling you, it's connected in a way that it should not be connected. There's no reason for the sun to be exactly 400 times farther from the moon as it is in diameter size, because that's why we have this perfect solar eclipse, because of that 400-400 ratio. How is that possible? That is such a small chance for that to happen, but somehow in the only planet that has intelligent beings that we know of in the solar system, we get this incredible coincidence with one moon only. One moon only. So, yeah. But that's not the only mathematical connection. There's something regarding, I'm sure you guys heard the number 432. This was kind of popularized by Randall Carlson. And we're going to talk about that stuff. But when the guy talked about harvest season, it kind of scared me, because I started thinking about 12,800 years ago, a comet hit in Greenland. We had the Hopi Indians who had escaped underground. We had people from the area of Cappadocia, Turkey, who escaped underground. And by the way, the fragments from the Younger Dryas period, the fragments from that, because there were actual like cometary fragments that were found and layered all the way up to Greenland, and in some parts even hitting Europe and North America. Those comet fragments actually hit those areas in which the people had to shelter underground, and it was written in some of their legends, as was spoken in the Hopi lore and was spoken in the Zoroastric texts. So, and then we can't forget about Plato, and we got Atlantis, which sank about 12,000 years ago, 12,500 years ago, I think is what the date was. So then I started doing some calculations. If, let's say, there is some kind of harvest season, and if the solar system is already based, I mean, whoever created us, whoever put us here, obviously had also made the solar system the way it is, because some of the coincidences regarding or at least put the moon where it is, because the coincidences regarding the placement of the moon with the earth, with the sun, I'm telling you, it's almost impossible for it to have happened almost coincidental. And so it's as if somebody had put some kind of like timer, some kind of clock in our solar system. And so if the Mayans, for example, based the entire system on precessional cycles with Venus, with the moon, if a woman has her reproduction cycle based on the moon's cycle, 28 days, if everything is based on these rhythms, why shouldn't the human extinction that may have happened every once in a while, and that's why we don't have memories of what humanity was like 200,000 years ago, for example, even though humans did exist, these cycles, why should I not believe that these cycles are based on the cosmic cycles, like the Mayans had talked about, how every other culture had talked about, how we are seeing right now with the relationship between the sun, the moon, and the perfect solar eclipse, for example. So if the human extinction was based on, let's say, the large precessional cycle, the 25,772 year cycle to be exact, but what it's telling me is that if we were to take this theory serious, this conjecture, whatever you want to call it, that our extinction level type events are actually based on the Earth's precessional cycle, and perhaps it happens every half cycle, and if we're to assume that that comet was an extinction level event, guys, we're basically in it right now. Now, I don't want to alarm people in a sense, because this is conjecture. We should be looking at this information, obviously, skeptically. We have to look at all our variables, but we shouldn't ignore this, guys. We should be wondering whether we are kind of in it right now. Now, to say that it happens every half cycle is a huge conjecture, and that there's no proof of that. Make it what you will, guys. Just try to be aware, try to be prepared. So yeah, it's a connection. I don't want you guys to go jumping off the bridges. I don't want people to start calling out the sirens. It's a conjecture. You still have to assume that there are extinction level events happening every half cycle. And even if you assume that, you would have to assume that the aliens would do it almost exactly. And then we don't know exactly when that 12,800 year, what the plus or minus margin of error is. So just take it with a grain of salt. But I do think people should be aware of these, how do you say, correlations. Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for joining me in this impromptu episode. I'll try to come out with more of these as the week rolls by. This is Felipe Osario, signing out.